Welcome back, Anatomy and Phys students, to our last unit of the year, the reproductive system. And hopefully it's a lucky unit, unlike the title of Unit 13. So we'll just call it the reproductive unit. We're going to start off with the simpler parts of it, which would be the male systems. There's a lot more going on in the female system, so we'll start with the male systems and focus on those to start, and then move into the female systems. So just some general reproductive stuff. The primary sex organs are known as gonads generically. In males, those are testes. In females, those are ovaries. And those gonads produce the sex cells called gametes generically, sperm or egg or oocytes in the female, and secrete sex hormones. Okay? Then we have a bunch of accessory reproductive structures, other than the ones that actually make the sperm and the egg. Different ducts, glands, and external genitalia that do different functions. And we also have the sex hormones, which help to regulate cycles, maturing, secondary sexual characteristics, and things of that nature. In males, those are androgens, mainly. And in females, those are estrogen and progesterones, primarily, though both males and females have both of those types. But males produce a lot more androgens. Biological females produce a lot more estrogen and progesterone. So the sex hormones play roles in the development and function of the reproductive organs themselves. They also play a role in sexual behavior and drives, and the growth and development of many other organs and tissues in the body, which we call secondary sexual characteristics. All right, let's get into man. Can anybody know the either the artist or the name of this very famous drawing? Yeah, that's Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. All right, the male gonads or testes produce sperm, and they're in the scrotum, okay? More colloquially known as the balls and the sac, if you're not familiar with those terms. The sperm are delivered to the exterior of the body through a series of ducts, starting with the epididymis, the ductus deferens, sometimes called the vas deferens, the ejaculatory duct, and the urethra. The accessory sex glands in that system, which include the seminal vesicles, prostate gland, and bulbourethral glands, empty the secretions into the ducts during ejaculation. It's not all pre-mixed. It's all mixed on the way through. Kind of like a soda machine at a self-serve soda machine at a fast food restaurant. They mix the water and the fizz and the syrup all gets mixed right as you're getting it. It's not all pre-mixed in the back somewhere. So here we can just do a quick overview of the main parts of the male reproductive system. And we'll start with the testes, okay, where the sperm is produced and where the sex hormones are produced. Off of that, we have the epididymis. We'll talk about what that does. And then the tube that carries the sperm and eventually the semen is the ductus or vas deferens, up around the top of the bladder here to the seminal vesicles, through the prostate gland and the bulbourethral gland, which add to the bulk of the semen. And then down, we're in the root of the penis there where they come together. Down through the penis, we get the shaft of the penis. And at the end, we have the glans penis. The tube in the penis is the urethra. And then that blue stuff is the erectile tissue, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The scrotum, it's a sack of skin. Yikes. A sack of skin that hangs outside the body at the root of the penis. Its external positioning is important. It helps to keep the testes 3 degrees centigrade lower than the core body temperature, which is needed for optimal sperm production. This is why the scrotum is able to kind of pull the testicles back up into the body to keep them warm when it's cold out, or let them hang down to get more air and stay cooler when it's hot out. It's to maximize sperm production. And so evolutionarily, it must have been more important for the continuation of the species to have proper temperature control than it was to keep those structures safely protected inside the body itself. So it always seems like a weird spot to have something so important for the survival of the species, but it's necessary in order to produce the sperm well. All right, so here we can see a cross-cut of the scrotum, which is always a little hard to look at if you're a guy. But we can see here, we've got the testes and the epididymis around it. You can see a really good blood supply going to and from there because you're producing millions of sperm a day. And then we can see the spermatic cord, which kind of holds the testicles down there. And you can see that spermatic cord on the other side is surrounded by a bunch of smooth muscle which can raise and lower the testes and the scrotum, along with some muscle around the outside of the scrotum that can cause it to shrink up as well. And then we can see the crosscut of the penis there, which we'll get more into the structures of that later. In the testes themselves, the body of the testes have a bunch of tubules called seminiferous tubules that make semen. From there, they will enter the epididymis, and the sperm exits the scrotum through the ductus deferens or vas deferens. And kind of around the seminiferous tubules, we have a bunch of interstitial cells that are what are producing the androgens. So the testicles have the tubes that make the sperm, and those tubes are kind of padded and embedded in the endocrine tissue that produces the androgens, the testosterone. Okay, so you can see that here. We've got seminiferous tubules here coming together, going into the epididymis. And then as they travel through the epididymis, the sperm are maturing, and they'll get eventually to the vas deferens there and head on out. All right, moving to the penis. This is the copulatory organ. Okay, so it's designed to copulate with the female or to connect with the female, in other words. And it's designed to deliver the sperm into the female reproductive tract. It is shaped appropriately to get the sperm where it needs to be inside the vagina. The vagina would be the copulatory organ of the female reproductive tract. So it consists of the attached root, the part of the penis that's firmly attached, and the free shaft hanging out, which ends in the glans penis. The expansion at the end of the penis is called the glans penis. Around the glans penis is something called the prepuce, or foreskin. It's a little cuff of skin that covers the distal end of the penis. That is, on some folks, cut off at birth or sometimes later, depending on the culture. And that is known as circumcision. There are a lot of speculation on why that started, if it was for cleanliness, reducing infection, various things of that nature, and it's continued through to the present day, though it's losing popularity within United States culture, at least, and it's lost popularity in a lot of other cultures a lot sooner, because it does remove some sensation from the penis, and if you use proper hygiene and care, chances of infections are pretty slim. Taking a look at the inside of the penis has the urethra and then 3 cylindrical bodies of erectile tissue. The pneumatics of the penis, if you will. The erectile tissue is a spongy network of connective tissue and smooth muscle riddled with vascular spaces. So a bunch of, like a sponge that can fill up with blood. Okay? All right, so what is an erection? During sexual excitement, the erectile tissue fills with blood. More blood goes in than comes out. We restrict the outflow of blood from the penis, and that causes the penis to swell and fill with blood. And under pressure, just like you would fill up a car tire with pressure. If you don't have enough pressure or air in the tire, it's floppy. And if you have enough pressure, it can be nice and firm and take your car down the road. Those 2 types of bodies, we have the corpus spongiosum, which surrounds the urethra. It's like a cylinder with the urethra running down the middle. And at the end, it'll expand, and it actually forms the head of the penis, or the glans penis. And that's there to make sure the urethra stays open when everything else is swelling and when it's inside the vagina, so that the ejaculate, the sperm, can get where it needs to go. It's not cut off like with a tourniquet or something. And then we have the 2 corpus cavernosa, paired dorsal erectile bodies on the top of the penis that provide the bulk of the erection. All right, so here we can see a couple of views of the penis. All right, so we can see the testicles and the vas deferens going up, collecting some more of the seminal fluid from the various glands, and then we get into the penis. Here we can see the corpus cavernosa running down the 2 sides, urethra down the middle, surrounded by the corpus spongiosum, which then expands at the end to form the glans penis. At the bottom, we can see that cross section of the penis, a frontal section, and we can see that the urethra is on the bottom, surrounded by the corpus spongiosum, which keeps it open, and the dorsal corpus cavernosum, or large caverns, or cavernous bodies, I guess would be the proper translation, there. And we can see that in the middle, we have the deep arteries, which are supplying the blood, and then a bunch of venous spaces around them where the blood is pooling. All right, so That was the penis. Now let's look, and we looked at the testes, the penis. Now let's look at the epididymis. The epididymis is this structure right here. The white ball-shaped thing is the testicle. The epididymis is that thing that's hanging off tight to it. They're a little pinker in this picture. Its job is to absorb testicular fluid. Make sure you provide nutrients to the sperm. Sperm are living cells, but they're not hooked up to any blood source. They have to get their nutrients from the fluids around them. So the epididymis makes sure that once the sperm is produced and you're storing it, waiting for ejaculation, that they stay alive. It provides them the nutrients they need. When the sperm enter the epididymis, they are non-motile. They're not moving, they're not fully mature, they're not ready to go anywhere yet. As they pass through the tubes, they become motile, they become mature. Okay. When ejaculation happens, there's smooth muscle in the epididymis which contracts and expels the sperm in waves into the ductus or vas deferens. Okay, basically it's peristalsis. Okay. So now we get the sperm in the ductus deferens or vas deferens, and that's basically going to be the main channel for the sperm to get to the urethra. If you've heard of a vasectomy, that's where you cut and tie off or clip or suture, ligate the ductus deferens, which is a nearly 100% effective form of birth control. If you can't get the sperm to the penis and through the urethra, even though ejaculate will still come out, you'll still have most of the fluid volume will still come out, but there won't be any sperm in it. I say nearly 100% effective because there are instances where either the doctors didn't tie things off well enough, or somehow the vas deferens or ductus deferens managed to reconnect and heal, and somebody who's had a vasectomy then all of a sudden gets pregnant, or the couple gets pregnant. All right, and they are technically reversible. It's not 100% guarantee you can reverse them, but it is possible to have them reversed, at least for a while. Okay. The urethra itself, in males, conveys both sperm or semen and urine, but at different times. Okay, urine and semen will not come out at the same time. Okay, it's a reflex response. That combined tube for both urine and oocytes or sex cells only happens in males. In females, those two tubes remain separate. We'll talk about that when we talk about male and female development later. But in males, both of them come together at the urethra. In females, you have a separate urethra, and the vagina is separate. They do not combine. All right, let's move on to the accessory glands. So the testes are making the sperm, but they're not making the bulk of the fluid volume of the semen, okay, which is the total fluid. Okay, so the seminal vesicles make most of that, about 60% of the semen volume, and they're lying right around the bladder. Okay, you guys may have seen those in your cats if you have a male cat. They join the ductus deferens to form the ejaculatory duct, and the sperm and seminal fluid mix in the ejaculatory duct and then enter the prostatic urethra, or the urethra as it moves through the prostate during ejaculation. So here we can see the seminal vesicles there and how they connect to the ejaculatory duct and in the prostate. Moving on to the prostate, talked about this a little bit in our unit on the urinary system last unit, but if this is the bladder, let's say this is the urethra, the prostate's a donut-shaped thing that surrounds the urethra right below the bladder. You can see it up in this picture in the upper right, what a normal prostate looks like. It produces a milky, slightly acid fluid, which has things like citrates and enzymes that accounts for about 1/3 of the semen's volume. Okay, and it plays a role in activating the sperm, getting their motors running, getting those little flagellum tails spinning so the sperm starts swimming. Okay, and then it enters the prostatic urethra during ejaculation. On the right in that upper picture up there, you can see an enlarged prostate or prostate with maybe prostatitis, and you can see how that can close off the urethra and make it difficult to urinate, which we talked about in the last unit. Further down the line here, we get to the bulbourethral glands or Cowper's glands. These are about the size of a pea in humans, below the prostate, and they produce a thick, clear mucus prior to ejaculation. And the job of that mucus prior to ejaculation is to try to neutralize traces of acidic urine in the urethra. Okay, you want to clean that out. It's like a pre-cleaning of the tube before the good stuff gets delivered, so to speak. So the everything comes through nice and clean and ready for impregnation. It's probably more commonly known as precum. It does not contain sperm, generally. It is possible for some sperm to get washed out of the urethra and into the vagina with the precum if the individual has not urinated since their last ejaculation and has another ejaculation relatively soon later. It is possible for that that precum to have a little bit of sperm in it, though unlikely to cause pregnancy. Likely, not impossible. All right, so here, let's just go through them again. So the journey of the sperm starts here in the testicle, which is in the scrotum. Immature sperm enter the epididymis, where it matures and is nourished until it's ready for ejaculation. Upon ejaculation, the epididymis squeezes, puts it into the ductus deferens. That travels via peristalsis through the ductus deferens, around the bladder, where it picks up about 60% of its fluid volume from the seminal vesicles. About a third of its fluid volume gets added in from the prostate, and those fluids also provide nourishment for the sperm, so the sperm can continue to live. And then as you go down, we got the bulbourethral gland, which will actually squeeze its materials into the urethra prior to ejaculation, generally. But then it goes through the penis, at the root of the penis, and you notice we can see the corpus cavernosa and corpus spongiosum in blue around the urethra, through the urethra and on out through the tip of the penis. And that was the male reproductive system structures. In the next section, we'll take a little bit closer look at how sperm is produced and what's going on with male hormones. All right, see you next time. Bye.